Welcome back. If legacy media is failing the public, you'd hope independence could step in, but that's exactly where government overreach has hit the hardest. Jasmine, many Canadians are still shocked to hear that government policy can actually limit access to news. What would you say to someone who still thinks this is just about regulating big tech?
Well, I would first and foremost say that's exactly what the government wants you to believe, that this is just about holding big tech accountable in a way that no other country does. What I would also add, though, is that these policies, in terms of regulating big tech, what it's actually doing is limiting what Canadians are allowed to see and share. We also saw with platforms such as Meta, Facebook, Instagram, that it blocked news entirely. To me, this is not in the slightest about protecting Canadians, especially from big tech. What it is about is protecting legacy media and political narratives from any competition. And we really do see Canadians paying the price with that because we have less access to information and much fewer voices in the conversation.
Yeah, it's actually quite hard for people like us to sort of cut through, but you sort of win this war of attrition over time. So you mentioned, the Online News Act. So bills like C11 and C18, the Online Streaming and Online News Acts, they've reshaped how content is controlled and distributed in Canada. And now with Bill C63, the so-called Online Harms Act, um, things will get even tighter. For Canadians who might not fully grasp the implications, how do these laws affect what we see, what we don't, and who gets to be heard?
I mean, to summarize it, Bill C11 really does just allow the government to manipulate and prioritize your feed on social media. And it does that by defining things as Canadian content, which, sure, yeah, that could sound very nice and patriotic, but that's actually very controlling. Bill C18 is the one that forces platforms to put government approved news organizations as kind of a top priority. And the result of that was that independent media got cut off. Even everyday conversations in some capacity were cut off. And all the same, corporate selected outlets get propped up. And it's been incredibly frustrating. There's platforms where if somebody says something that's not even true, you can't even send them a link to correct them so that they can learn. It's no wonder why, Instagram and Facebook are just cesspools. And Bill C63 is I would say probably one of the most concerning things I've ever seen. Of course, it is defined as being there to protect children from online harms. Meanwhile, almost every platform already has rules and regulations against that. We
Right.
already have laws in place for all of that. But a lot of it is, there was no definition whatsoever of what hate speech is, no definition of what harmful content is. And it also gives the government and citizens monetary incentive to report people who may possibly commit a hate crime of some sort in the future. So pre-crime penalties is something that is just absolutely absurd, and it does cause you to self-censor, and it's just massive government overreach.
Yeah, it's very minority report, if you will. But it's so wild. I've been down that path on that bill a few times, and every time I go through it, it's just more and more insane to me. And I guess
Yeah.
we'll see how it shakes out with Carney. So, what do you feel like the long term risks are if we keep going down this path for journalism, but also for democracy?
I mean, at the end of the day, y- gosh, dissenting voices should not be shut out at all. And if there are people who are doing things that are really bad, they will be punished for it with pre-existing laws that we already have.
Totally agree.
And the long term risk to me is just devastating because human beings, we've gotten as far as we have by being able to discuss, debate, think, see things that challenge what we want to believe, what we do believe. And when you lose the right to speak freely, to think freely, and then to also disagree freely, to see other perspectives, in that case, journalism, the news, it really does just become government sponsored storytelling, which we saw a lot already in this election.
Yeah.
And just because you're a dissenting voice, that doesn't mean that you're harmful at all. It just means that you have a different idea. You have a different opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that in the slightest. And so I do fear for Canadian citizens who will just, without even realizing it, be put into these echo chambers because most Canadians are not aware of just how overreaching these bills are. And to me, democracy dies when your people stop asking questions because the government has just decided for you what's safe and who's allowed to say it.
Yeah, my biggest problem with a lot of this is if I can't express myself to you, then you don't even get to have the same thoughts that I have. So you can't maybe rationalize these problems and we can't find compromise. But it's we're going
Yeah.
down a dark path. We'll be right back.